Hello, this is Stephen Seifert. It is Wednesday, March 21st, and we are working on dulcimer chords. This class is mountain dulcimer chord shapes for backup, chord melody, and embellishments. This is the second week of the class. I just want to let you guys, I want you to remember, we talked about open fifths. We need to talk more about notes a little bit, but we covered the three main shapes and we said number patterns and we just moved them around, didn't worry about what they were called. At the end of class, and you may not have been there for that, so you want to make sure you get that video. Right at the end, I started talking about hooking those shapes up to create this system of interlocking shapes that can really help you learn this a lot quicker. Today, we're supposed to talk about flipped shapes, playing chords in different zones or areas, and actually using it to back someone else up. Remember, keep your mics muted unless you would like to unmute them, and that's fine, but just mute them when you're done. I'm going to bring up the text chat, so hopefully I'll see if somebody says something like, Vicky says, for your one finger barring of two strings, are you using a radius fretboard? That's a good thing to ask. Yeah, it is radius. So that means the frets are not flat. They curve from the bass string to the melody string. I think that's especially helpful for me when I'm using a single finger to hold down three strings. It might help a little bit with two adjacent strings, but I think it's especially helpful for three strings, and I want you to know that it helps a little bit. But if you said to if my dulcimer builder said, "Hey, I'm not going to do radius anymore," I'd say, "Well, that's all right. I'll be all right." It does help a little, and you know, a little bit matters. All right. So, Laurie asks, any new handouts? No, we've got plenty to do right now, but there's more coming. Cindy says, I'm not sure I understand what open fifth means, and we didn't talk about what that means. I just got you to do it, but we need to cover that. I want to err on the side of, hey, they can play all these chords and they know what to do with them, but they don't know the music theory as well. You know, I'd rather err on that side. It's too easy for me to talk without end. Yeah. So you can type questions as there. You can also click the raise hand button or just do this at the screen because I'm looking at you guys right now. So let's jump into these things. Before I run you through a playing review where we just kind of play through everything. Do you have any questions, just like Cindy asked about the open fifths? Do you have questions about what we did last time? I might need to let the dog out. That'd be all right. No, I'm letting the dog out. Think about your questions. I'll be back in 1 minute. It wasn't bad. So I want to start without, sorry. You got a question? I don't know that I do. Anyone? It looks like you might be ready to rock. All right. Before we play at all, I don't want you to use your hands on your dulcimer. I don't want you to look at your hands. I just want to take about 2 minutes to review the numbers, maybe 3 minutes. Just the number patterns. It might not be your strength. So let's bolster your weakness, thinking with numbers. When I call out a 3-string chord, I'm going to start with the bass string. So the first number out of my mouth is the bass string, the one farthest from you. We started, and try not to look at your dulcimer. If you have to, just keep it brief. Don't finger these yet, just numbers. We talked about an L chord. I'm going to call that out, bass string first. 002, 113, 224, 335, 44, some kind of 6, 557, some kind of 6, some kind of 6, 8, 779, 8810, 9911. So the number pattern there is the bass and the middle string are the same number. The melody string jumps up a couple. Whenever you hear me say some kind of 6, or later you'll hear me say some, 1.5 or 2, you're going to have to decide which to pick. How do you know which to pick? Well, there's a number of ways and reasons, but you're going to start with what key you're in. So we want to select the ones that are in the key that you're playing music in. So what we did last week is some kind of 6 was, I want you to choose 6.5s on the bass and melody. I want you to choose 6 on the middle. That will keep us in key. So say those numbers with me, the L's. 002, 113, 224, 335, 44, 6.5, 557. Here's the weird one. Some kind of 6, some kind of 6, 8. 6.5, 6, 8. And then 779, keep going. 8, 8, 10, 9, 9, 11, 10, 10, 12. I'm going to give you a note on the bass string. You say the 3 numbers. So if I say 2 on the bass, I want you to say 224. 1, 113. 7, 779. 3, 335. 0, 002. Now that might be painful. I was just telling my wife, I think when I try to practice things in my mind only, it's very difficult. So it's this broken image. I can't quite hold on to everything. But it seems like if I just do that for 5 minutes, like while you're walking or something, just for 5 minutes, when I get back to the instrument, boom, things are clearer. So I'm all about this, using the numbers, doing it in the mind, away from the instrument. As frustrating and as tedious and as broken as that may feel, I think there's benefits, and I think you can get better at it. I've heard chess players talk about you can get better at thinking ahead, which I can assure you I'm very bad at, so I struggle to believe it. But music maybe has me thinking there might be some truth to that. Let's do the slants. 3 consecutive numbers. Say them with me. 012, 123, 234, 345, 45, 6.5. Tricky one. 5, 6, 7. I've had people say, well, why isn't it 5, 6, 6.5? Well, because the slant, at least so far, it's been 3 different numbers. 5, some kind of 6, skip any kind of 6 and get a 7. 5, 6, 7. Start with a 6.5 on the bass. 6.5, 7, 8. What's next? 7, 8, 9. 8, 9, 10. 9, 10, 11. 3 consecutive numbers. Extended slants are just like those, but the final number is 1 higher following the scale. So if 012 is a slant, the extended slant is 013. You just extend that melody string to a higher one. Say these with me, starting with O on the bass. 013, 1, 2, 4, 2, 3, 5. 3, 4, some kind of 6. 3, 4, 6.5. 4, 5, 7. If it was 4, 5, some kind of 6, that would be a slant. 3 consecutive numbers. But 4, 5, 7, that's your extended. 5, what? 8. 5 something 8. 5, 6, 8. Start on the bass with 6.5. 6.5, 7, 9. Now I want to break your brain for a moment. Don't look at your dulcimer for this one. We're going to say all the D major shapes that are L's, slants, and extendeds, but I don't want you to look at your dulcimer. Don't want you to play it. And I'll help you on this. We're going to find the L. It starts on the bass with open. Say an L starting with open. O, O, 2. Last number out of your mouth was the 2 on the melody string. O, O, 2. If we put that 2 over on the bass and begin a slant, we get a 2, 3, 4. You got to move to the right to do that. If we take that 4 that was on the melody string and put it on the bass and say an extended slant, we get a 4, 5, 7. The order of shapes there, L, slant, extended slant. So give me the L that starts on the bass at O. O, O, 2. Put that 2 on the bass, begin a slant. 2, 3, 4. Put that 4 on the bass, begin an extended slant. 4, 5, 7. Say them all with me. L, slant, extended slant. O, O, 2, starting on the bass. 2, 3, 4, starting on the bass. 4, 5, 7. And you can keep going until you run out of frets. What was the last number I just said? 7. Put that 7 on the bass, say an L. 7, 7, 9. Put the 9 on the bass, say a slant. 9, 10, 11. Put the 11 on the bass, say an extended slant. 11, 12, 14. So I want you to see what we just said. O, 2, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 7, 7, 7, 9, 9, 10, 11, 11, 12, 14. So go ahead and play through those. If you want to make life easier, just do the 3 that are on the far left, the L, slant, and extended. You don't need to go to the high ones, but some of you may want to go up high as well. And I encourage you when you practice things like this to make them less tedious, make them musical. And you could do that with finger picking, you can do that with strumming. It's not the most interesting thing in the world, so you need to pretend it is for a short season of your life. Here's what I might do. It's like you have to inject some playfulness into it. Otherwise, you might as well just be keeping track of numbers with a pencil and paper or something. You've got to do that in a way that matters to you, really. So I'm giving you an opportunity to do that right now. And if it feels like suffering, you're doing it right. And we talked about fingerings. There's many different ways to finger things, but if you're looking for a thumb method that's easy to remember, all 3 of these shapes can be played with a middle finger on the bass string and a thumb on the melody string. You just have to work out what you're going to do on the middle string. but all of them can be played with a thumb on the bass. Sorry, wrong. A middle finger on the bass and a thumb on the melody string. And if you really want to incrementally build up to that fingering, leave the middle string open the whole time. Watch this. 002, 2, 3, 4, but I'm leaving the middle open. 4, 5, 7, I'm leaving the middle open. 7, 7, 9, leaving the middle open. So I'm seeing the shape, I'm thinking those numbers, but I'm only honoring the bass and melody. I'm keeping the middle open. So just watch my hand as I play through these. You know, get good at that from a fingering perspective. Then, and I know you'll be watching this later, so you can hit pause all you want. Then, work out what to do on the middle string. Once your hand is doing the bass and melody in a relaxed fashion, look for the most reasonable thing to do for each one of these. Like right now, this 4, 5, 7. This index finger, it's the only option. I'm going to bring that down. If my fingernail's long, it will force me to do strange things with my hand. If you feel bad about cutting your fingernails off, then get your toes done. Have the best looking toes ever. But your fingernails say, capable human, kicking butt on a daily basis. Heather's been doing, guitar. It's really hard to play guitar with fingernails in the left hand. Let's look at the 2, 3, 4. Same finger. Index finger just drops right down. You really can't use a pinky or ring if you've got a middle finger on the bass, thumb on the melody. So it turns out the slant and the extended slant have the same fingering. Let's look at an L. What if you were doing a 2, 2, 4? Well, I'm ignoring the middle string for right now. 2, 2, 4. Middle finger on the bass, thumb on the melody. You could finagle an index finger down on the middle string at 2, but why not just drop your ring finger to the middle string at 2? Now, I am very well acquainted with other fingerings for thumb players for these 3 shapes, but I think this is a great first one. If you're not going to use the thumb, then I want to recommend something. But before I do that, and I think I said this before, if you're going to be a thumb player, watch my Dulcimer and shake your head if I said this in the last video. If you're going to play with a thumb, you need to take the left side where the tuner is and push that further away from you. This will make thumb playing much more easy. That's one reason to have a strap on the Dulcimer, is it makes it a lot easier. This light might dip. Let's see what happens. Uh-oh. Makes it a lot easier on the wrist to have this extreme angle in the lap. Right side is close to you, left side is out. I don't like having the right side that close to my belly from a strumming standpoint, but it can be dealt with. If you're not going to use the thumb, this makes non-thumb playing a nightmare. If you want to do non-thumb fingering, look at my elbow. See how it kicks out as soon as I get rid of the thumb? But if I will reduce that angle, bring the left side back towards me, I can now drop the elbow, the wrist straightens out. So people who primarily use thumb for chording, especially when they go up high, if they're going to use the thumb up high, they're going to have an extreme angle on this to the point where you might want to strap on it because it's just hanging off of my left knee here. If you're not going to use the thumb at all, you want this thing to be fairly straight. I even tilt mine up. But I like to play with all 5 fingers, depending on the tuning, usually. Sometimes I do 4-string playing. I've got all these different tunings for 3 and 4-string. So sometimes I find this in-between place that will accommodate what I'm going to do. So let me show you the non-thumb fingerings. And there are variations on these. And I did this last time a little bit, but I want to remind you, ring finger, I'm going to hold a 2-2-4 down. Ring finger, just the first segment, 2-2. I'm not holding all 3 strings unless I have to, and right now I don't have to, just the bass and middle. And then the index finger grabs the 4. Shake your head up and down if I talked about this last time. I think I did quite a bit. The slant, ring, middle index, 2, 3, 4. The slant, ring, middle index, 2, 3, 4. An extended slant, 2, 3, 5. I have big hands, and I don't like to do this, but you could do ring, middle index for 2, 3, 5. I don't like that. So I do something that takes weeks to get good at. Pinky, ring, index. You must have short fingernails on the middle string. Pinky, ring, index, 2, 3, 5. I really do find long fingernails cause the most problems on the middle string, whether you're a thumb player or a non-thumb player. Marianne, let's see. Thank you for explaining about tilting the dulcimer up so I can easily reach my mandolin. Yeah, going up here. We'll talk more about fingerings when we flip the chords. And there's the Gary Gallagher method. There's the Larry Conger method. There's all kinds of methods. All right. So I want to talk about notes for a second. And I hate that I can't remember if I told this. I do think we didn't spend enough time on notes, but did I tell you? I think I might have. Memorize the notes on the bass string in the middle from O to 6.5. Oh boy. And there's a handout, a number of handouts where if you look at the top, I just start the handout with that fingerboard as a reference. That's the only reason I put it at the top, just so you've got a reference of what the notes are. If you know the notes on the bass string and the middle string from O to 6.5, you can deduce all the rest. So I want to show you a pattern I do. F sharp, B, E, A, D, G, C, F. If you have a 1.5, normally I don't have a 1.5. I have spent years using a 1.5, but most of my dulcimer working life, I just don't have it because most people don't, especially beginners, low intermediates. I actually have a whole pattern. I do B, E, A, D, G, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat. Or I think A sharp, D sharp, G sharp, C sharp, F sharp. I've got ways of practicing the notes. Somehow you have to come up with a way that doesn't make you lose your mind. Got to get these notes down. You don't have to, but let me just say it as if it's true. I think it would really help you a lot to get those notes down. I mean, the first thing you need to do is D, E. I'm going to pretend I don't have a 1.5 for a moment. D, E, F sharp, G. That's your first 4 notes. D, E, F sharp, G on the bass. And then A, B, C, C sharp. That's your next 4 notes. Everybody say that with me. D, E, F sharp, G. Now say A, B, C, C sharp. Now, I'm giving you a couple weeks to get that. I want you to get the notes down. On the middle string, it's harder because you'll keep remembering the bass string. I'll say, well, what's a 3 on the middle? And you'll be thinking of a 3 on the bass. But 3 on the middle is a D. The middle notes, say those with me. A, B, C sharp, D. A, B, C sharp, D. And then E, F sharp, G, G sharp. Say that. E, F sharp, G, G sharp. You've got that on the handouts. I really want you to know what those are. I don't usually have enough time in a 1-hour class for people to realize the benefits of these. But I want to show you the benefits real quick. If you know the notes on the bass string, you also know the notes on the melody string, so that's great. If you know the notes from 0 to 7, you also know the notes from 7 to 14. This is your little dulcimer up here. If you're fretted the same in both octaves, the big difference is when you jump up here, it sounds higher. It feels more scrunched together, but it's the same notes. So once you learn it from 0 to 6.5, really, then you have it from 7 to 13.5. And then it even starts over again up at 14. If you know the bass, you know the melody. If you know the lower octave, you'll know the higher octave. We moved a shape around, like a 1-1-1, 3-3-3, 4-4-4. These are called open fifths because, well, I don't want to linger on this, but a major chord has 3 ingredients: a root, a third, and a fifth. A root, a third, and a fifth. If you have an open fifth, it's because the third has been removed. So a major or a minor chord or a diminished chord or an augmented, they call them triads. They have roots, thirds, and fifths. If you get rid of the thirds, you just have an open fifth of some kind. Our chord shapes, I don't like not looking at you. Our chord shapes get named. You're going to name these shapes, the L's, the slants, the extended slants, or even this bar chord I just did. You're going to name them by looking for the root in the shape and then finding what note that is. So I want you to know this. These bar chords, like a 2-2-2, whatever note is on the bass string is the name of this open fifth. Some people call these power chords, like guitar players call them power chords. If you run them through distortion, like Jimi Hendrix used when he played the Star Spangled Banner, little kids will do this with their mouth. Those kind of guitar players really like using open fifths with distorted amps because when you get rid of the third, it makes a clear sound. We can call them bar chords, open fifths here. These get named by the bass string. And remember, the bass and melody are the same. So what is a 2-2-2? You can look at that handout until you've got it memorized. What's a 2 on the bass? This is some kind of F sharp. Now, because it doesn't have a third, it's not major, it's not minor, it's neither. Neither major nor minor. It's an open fifth. The third determines if it's major or minor, and if there is no third, you have an open fifth. And this is really powerful, y'all, because a 2-2-2 can function in a band either as major or minor. It's very versatile for this reason. A 3-3-3. What do you have on the bass for a 3-3-3? A G. This will work for G major or G minor. This is huge. A shape where you don't have to worry about major and minor. Now, there are exceptions with really fancy chords, but if someone in a jam says, let's do Tennessee Waltz, they want to do, where am I? There I am. If they want to do Tennessee Waltz, and they lean over to you and go, this is real simple. We're doing it in the key of D. There's just D. The chords are D, G, and A. Very simple. But there is an F sharp dominant 7 in the B part. And actually, Jerry over here on guitar is using an F sharp dominant 9. You could use an F sharp 13 if you want. Just make it colorful and pretty. If you use this bar chord, you get to ignore all that, and all you hear is this F sharp, blah 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 blah. This is real. When I'm playing with people, if someone says, "Oh, here comes that F sharp dominant 7 flat 9," I can just play an F sharp bar chord, and it will strengthen whatever colorful, strange things the rest of the group is doing. Well, in Dulcimer world, you don't need to play some of these. In Nashville, they call these out-of-town chords. I think that is so funny. Like if you're in Nashville and you go, that's an F sharp dominant 7 flat 9, somebody will say that's an out-of-town chord. We don't, be careful with that. What are you going to play for an F sharp dominant 7 flat 9? A 2-2-2. You find whatever letter is in the name of the chord on the bass string, and you do a bar chord. If you are in tune, which may not be true, if you are in tune, we will sound good together. I'm going to call out a letter. You find that letter on the bass, do a bar chord. Use that reference sheet if you must. E. 1-1-1. If I'm in tune. Okay. B. Bravo. 5-5-5. Da 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 da. 5-5-5. That's some. Is it major or minor? It's neither. It'll function with both. It'll work for B minor, B major, B dominant 7, B dominant 9, B dominant 13, B minor 7, B minor 9, B minor 11, B minor 13. It works with all. It's so versatile. How about G major 7? G major 7. You can ignore the major 7 part. Find a G on the bass. And actually, I'll tell you, if you're in a Dulcimer group doing backup, chances are when someone plays a G chord, they're going to use a more complete version. Maybe an 0-1-3, a 3-3-5, something like that. By you doing these power chords, like a 3-3-3, it provides an alternate voicing for your group. You're not just doing what the person next to you is doing. You're doing something else. But it all goes together. What about an A minor 9? A minor 9. Find an A on the bass. Hold down all the strings. You can use 3 fingers. There's 4 possibilities I just went through there. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's other possibilities. I can bar with the index. I can bar with the ring. I usually bar with index or ring. Let me do this now. I'll play the fancy chords that you don't know about, these out-of-town chords. But to survive or to provide an alternate sound, you're going to do the bar chord. So if I say A minor 9, you're going to play 4-4-4. I'm going to play something else. But together, we will create an A minor 9 together. So let's do an A minor 9. Now, if you're not playing right now, you're not exactly hearing what the players are hearing. Let's do another one. How about a D dominant 13? Where's D on your bass? You could do a 7-7-7, but why don't you do an O-O-O? A D on your bass, O-O-O. I'm going to play something else. So here's our D dominant 13. If you're just hearing me, it's ugly. If you're playing along with me with an O-O-O, why don't we do both of those chords? I want you to do an A minor 9 to a D dominant 13. So you'll do a 4-4-4 and then an O-O-O. Give me that A minor 9. Ready, go. Here comes that D dominant 13. Back to the A minor 9. D dominant 13, G major 7, G major 6, G major 7. What are you doing? 3-3-3, G major 6. Let's go to A minor 7, D dominant 9, A minor 7, D dominant 9, that's an O-O-O. Let's go to G major 6. G major 6, you're holding down a 3-3-3. Now hopefully, if I didn't get that wrong, you were hearing what a guitar might kind of do. 6 strings, right? I'm 3, you're 3. You're hearing a pretty colorful jazzy chord. Now this won't work for all chords. It doesn't work for anything that's diminished or augmented. But in Dulcimer land, that means we're good most of the time. So if you don't know what diminished or augmented means, don't worry right now. This will work for... You could go to 3 festivals in a row and it'll work for everything. But you've got to have that note on the bass. So some of you have a 1.5 fret on the bass. That gives you an F. Not an F sharp, but an F. So now you can play all kinds of F chords. F major, F minor, F major 7, all kinds of stuff. Those of you who do not have a 1.5, and that would be me most of the time, even though I have one here, I can't do this for an F chord. But I go to a lot of festivals where no one needs an F chord. We're often in the keys of D, G, and A, and it just doesn't come up. And when it does, I just fudge my way through it. Everything's fine. This is huge, y'all. And this isn't some theoretical cute thing, that I just want to waste time with. I use this stuff. So listen, especially if I'm in a group, and I'm not a great singer. So if I'm going to sing and play, I like that there's one shape. I just move left and right. The rest of the band will fill it out, make it sound better. Because it's one shape, I don't have to be looking at the instrument a lot. And I can focus on not sounding terrible as a singer. I'm in a 70s mood today. I don't know if you could tell. I like old time music. I like 70s, love songs. I love Air Supply. Who doesn't like Air Supply? Broken People. I use this constant. Listen to this. Welcome back. Your dreams are your ticket out. With a beam, da-da-la, da-da-la-la, ba-da-la, ba-da-la, ba-da-la. Oh, who'd have thought they'd lead ya right here where they need ya? Well, they teach them a lot, but they've got them on the spot. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. That's not an easy song. There's a lot of mileage you can get out of this. Now, if I'm backing up someone, this is part of the class, backup. I don't want to use the same chords as they play through the same tune 5 times. If Marianne over here wanted me to back her up on stage, what are you doing, Marianne? Well, I'm doing this medium to fast tune. I'm going to go through it 5 times. All right, well, how about I sit out the first whole A part, the AA. I'll come in on the Bs, but I'm going to come in simply. That's where these shapes might come in. Still letting Marianne carry the bulk of the experience for the audience. Second time through, I'm going to use maybe those chords you guys are more familiar with, the D, G, and A that you've probably first learned. But as I get into the 3rd, 4th, 5th time through the tunes, I'm looking to do different things for backup that help, whoever's got the spotlight. I want them to be more interesting, so I don't want to detract, but I don't want to just play the same old D, G, and A the whole time. I want you guys to see how I might back up Bile Them Cabbage. So Marianne's starting Bile Them Cabbage. 1, 2, ready, go. Bile them cabbage down, boys, turn them old cakes round. The only song that I can sing is Bile them cabbage down. I'll come in with this. Bile them cabbage down, boys, turn them old cakes round. Those are those bar chords. Sing is bile them cabbage down. Then I'm doing the bar chords again, but with a different feel. And then she sings a verse, so I get simple. I'm still just using bar chords. Guys, I like how they don't get in her way. She looks over at the fiddler and nods, so the fiddler's going to take a lead here. Look what I do. Now I'm using L's, slants, and extended slants. Now I'm using different L's, slants, and extended. I went up a little. All right, she's going to sing again. Now I'm using those D, G's, and A's that you probably learned when you were a beginner. I'm going to go back to the bar chords. I'm going to go to the L's and the slants and the extended. And then all of a sudden... So I've got D, G, and A shapes everywhere. And right now we got bar chords in this part of the dulcimer. You could do higher ones up here. I've got L's, slants, and extended. And one thing that will help you navigate all this is to realize to the right of every L, there is a slant of the same name and same chord name. To the right of every slant, there's an extended. To the right of every extended is an L, and these are all the same chord. They're all Ds. All right, I need to take some questions. So it says here on the, I got questions. That's great. Larry says, for a 6-foot tall person, what VSL would you recommend? I inherited a 29. I love a good long VSL. When you have a long dulcimer, it makes some of these chords harder. But in particular, it makes about 3 or 4 chords harder. And there are alternates for those 3 or 4 chords. We talked about that just a little last week. So somebody says, well, my dulcimer's too long. Yeah, it's too long for like these 2 chords you use all the time. Here's 2 alternates for those chords. A lot of a longer dulcimer can work out for smaller hands. You got to tweak some of what you're doing. Trim your nails, boom, it feels a little better. Some of you were taught, like I said last week, to finger right next to the frets all the time. That's not necessary. Relax that, things get better. Change the way you're sitting, change the way you're holding the dulcimer. There's a lot can be done with a longer dulcimer. I just want to get that out there because it's mostly relevant for chording, which is what we're doing. Shorter ones are easier, usually in most ways. Sometimes the sound is not as good as the longer one, but that's dependent on a lot of things. I just want you guys to relax. Don't feel panicky if you think your dulcimer is a little too long. Chances are the 2 chords that's giving you the most trouble on, we can work with that. But your question is, you're tall, you probably have big hands. I just feel like often, it depends on the design. 25s I feel like are just a little short, but it's not that big a deal. Sound-wise, I mean. This is a 25.8. That's not much different. But on this particular design, we went back and forth, and I like this better. I find longer works better when you don't have extra frets. If you don't have a 1.5, the longer is easier to deal with. If you have full chromatic, longer is rough. It's rough. So I'm 6'2". I have a 25.8. And there you go. Vicky says, why is a D major D F sharp A? That's such a good question. I'm going to show you real quick. Hey, that last thing we did with the bar chords before I look at the rest of the questions, that's hugely powerful. But what must you memorize? The notes on the bass string. You're going to use those bar chords in 2 scenarios. One is you're trying to survive. Someone said F sharp dominant 7. You don't know what the heck they're talking about, but you can find an F sharp on the bass and do a 2-2-2. Not only will you survive until you can learn more, but it sounds pretty great if the other people in your group are playing the more colorful, complicated things. The second reason to use these is not to survive, but to prosper. Sometimes they are the right choice, and I use them a lot. I like them. The 3-finger chords like L, slant, and extended often, I feel like if I switch to the bar chord, it will make Marianne, who's got the spotlight right now, on our pretend performance, it gets out of her way. It provides a solid foundation. So anyway, let me show you this. So I'm going to this thing here. Where is it? Whiteboard. All right. Yeah. All right. So I want you to see something. I'm going to type. And I want to go left or right here. It says that somebody might be not seeing this. I don't want to type. Forget it. Let me just write. Okay. So I'm going to write out the notes of the D major scale. I'm going to try to do as little as this as I have to. It says you can't access this after the meeting. It will be on the recording. D, E, F sharp. I need an iPad Pro with an Apple Pencil. G, A. If you've got an old one that you think has got a crack in it, I'll buy that from you. A, B. I want one where the screen is cracked because I know you're just going to want to throw it out. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp. Now, you could ask why why does the F and the C have sharps after it? Let's not worry about that right now. Just trust me. The notes of a D major scale: D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp. Watch this. If you start with any one of these, you can call that the root of your chord. For instance, let's say D is our root. I'm just going to put a root down here. If D is the root, you start numbering after the root. So root is kind of like 1. E is 2. F sharp is 3. G is 4. A is 5. But that numbering is relevant to where this R is. I could put this R under the G. And if I put the R under the G, the numbering starts with G, where G is the 1, A is 2, B is 3. But as it stands, I've determined that D will be my root. So if I start numbering these, F sharp would be the 3. Oh, I just saw somebody else right there. That's weird. A would be the 5, the root, the 3rd, the 5th. So the way you figure out what the root, the 3rd, and the 5th of is of a basic chord, whether it's major or minor or diminished or augmented, you lay out the notes of your scale in order. You decide, it's up to you, which one of those will be the root. You start numbering with the root. Root, 3rd, 5th, D, F sharp, A. If you, on your instrument, find a D on one string, an F sharp on another, an A on another, you will hear a chord. Look at your reference on your handouts. Look at that reference at the top of the page where I put the note reference. Let's say on the bass string we want a D, so we'll go with an open bass. On the middle string, let's put an A. That's the 5th of your chord, and that on the middle, that means open. So now we have open, open, D, A. And on your melody string, we're going to use the remaining ingredient, the 3rd, this F sharp. Put your F sharp on the melody at 2. So you're trusting me with what notes are a D major scale. I've written it out. We've determined that D will be our root. And these chords need a root, a 3rd, and a 5th. Why not E? Because it's the 2 of the chord. Why not G? Because it's the 4 of the chord. We want a root, a 3rd, and a 5th. A 1, 3, 5. Notice how it's staggered. You select every other note out of the scale until you have 3. That's another way to think of this. Every other note out of the scale until you have 3. And the first one of those 3 will be your root. Then you got to lay them out on the dulcimer. And I just told you one way to do it. I know they're not in order on the dulcimer, but an O-O-2 starting on the bass is a D, A, F sharp. Boom, we're in good shape. Look at a 2, 3, 4 on your reference sheet. 2, 3, 4. What's a 2 on the bass? F sharp. What's a 3 on the middle? D. What's a 5 on the melody? A. Did I say that right? F sharp, D, A. I hope you're seeing that on your paper. That's a slant. Let's look at the extended slant. 4, 5, 7. What notes do you have on the reference? 4, 5, 7. You've got an A on the bass, an F sharp on the middle, a D on the melody. In all 3 cases of these shapes, you've got these 3 ingredients represented. Now, if let's see, yeah. If we start with something else, like let's say we start with a G. If that's our root, 1, skip the A because we select every other one until we have 3. The B is our 3rd. The A is our 2. We don't need a 2. C sharp is our 4. We don't need a 4. We need a 5. What comes after C sharp? D. So now we've got the root, 3rd, and the 5th. So this is where those come from. And I don't want to do too much more on that. Boy, look at all these weird things in there. I don't know what that is in the chat. Brenda says, are you planting your thumb on the side of the fretboard for the bar chords? I think I do things like that. Let's see. Yeah. So, and it's different depending on whether I'm using my ring or index to bar and where I'm at. Like when I'm up high, it's this part of my knuckle that's on the side of the dulcimer, and the thumb is actually not touching anything. Sometimes the thumb is pressing, but not really. It looks like it's pressing on the fingerboard side. Sometimes I put the thumb over here. When I'm doing bar chords, they can wear your hand out, and I just have a lot of different ways I do it. And yeah, the thumb is doing weird things. The thumb is not pushing in any of these places. It's usually just touching. And sometimes it's not doing anything. I just keep it up in the air. Let's see. Would you ever use 1.5 fret and 6 as a bar in a jam? Yeah. What is 6 on the bass? Somebody say it. You can say it to yourself. What is 6 on the bass? A C. So this is a good way to get C chords. C major, C minor. And some of you, Janet Oliver looks surprised a little. I don't know, because it's so tiny, the image, but she looks surprised. If anybody's ever said, that you need a C major, there you go, 666. Early manuscripts say 667, I think, so you don't have to worry about that. 666. That was a joke. It was not a great joke. 666. And 6.5, 6.5, 6.5. That would be your C sharp something or other. Remember, it can be major or minor. And the 1.5 is the F I mentioned earlier. That's your F chord. F major, F minor, F whatever. So if you have the 1.5 fret, the first thing you should learn is in the key of C major, you'll need 3 chords. We'll talk about this later. C major, F major, G major. How do you do a bar chord for a C? 666. Bar chord for an F, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. Bar chord for a G, 333. So yeah. We're not mastering theory in this class. We kind of want to get the practice down, the doing of these shapes, but I gave you the notes in order of a scale. I said if you circle every other one until you have 3 and make the first one your root, you now know the ingredients of that chord. So one thing you could do for your homework for next week, write out the notes of the D major scale and figure out what the 7 chords are in that 7-note scale. You give each of the 7 notes a turn at being the root. 3 of those chords will be major. Those are the ones we use mostly. 3 of those chords will be diminished. No, that's wrong. Cancel that. 3 of those chords will be minor. We use those sometimes. We use the 3 that are major more often. 1 of them will be diminished, and that's a tricky thing to talk about. But you know what I would love next week? If you say, hey, there are 7 chords in D major, and I don't know which of them's major or minor or what, but here's the ingredients of each of the 7 chords. That would be a handy thing to do on paper. We're supposed to talk about zones and flipping. Let me talk about flipping first. You know, this class this is one of those things like math where you have to get this stuff down a little bit to really enjoy what's coming in each session. Remember, put on something on the TV to make it easier to practice tedious things. Practice finger picking. Remember we moved slants around and had fun? Then I moved L's around, had fun with that. You can do the picking. You can do slow stuff, whatever, but you've got to find a way to live with this. I got a buddy, and I love him, but you can tell him what to do, and he'll work on that, but he doesn't come up with anything on his own, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I told him I'll have to charge a lot more for lessons because I really want you, when you're at home on your own, to kind of mess with it. And here's a quick example. I give you a recipe for biscuits, and I say to you, change one ingredient. Either make it more or less, or change that ingredient out and swap it for another. Biscuit recipe, what would you do? Maybe you add, instead of regular pepper, add white pepper. See what that does. I wouldn't like that. See if you could, instead of using whatever you're using for fat, use pork fat. See how that affects things. Go home in your kitchen and experiment. 90% of what you do will probably fail. Please go do that with your musical kitchen. All right. Yeah, that's a good idea. So watch flipping. I'm going to take a slant, this 2, 3, 4. Remember, I'm calling these out bass string first. 2, 3, 4. If you flip a shape, you're going to take the two outer strings, in this case, 2 on the bass, 4 on the melody, and you swap them. Whatever's on the bass goes to the melody. Whatever's on the melody goes to the bass. The middle stays the same. So a 2, 3, 4 becomes a 4, 3, 2. A 2, 3, 4 becomes a 4, 3, 2. And on double C tuning on the banjo, this works on strings 2, 3, and 4. Every shape can be flipped. You can do that with the thumb fingering too. It's a little weird. Watch this. When I flip the 2, 3, 4 with the thumb, see how I'm swapping the fingers over and my wrist starts to kink up? If this dulcimer is angled, like I said earlier, that's a lot easier to do. So thumb players, I think, who angle extreme angles makes flipping easier if you're also moving the finger. There's another way to finger this that a number of you know how to do, and let's hold off on that. So think of this number-wise without even playing. Let me call 3 numbers, and you just say them backwards. 1, 2, 3. Just say it backwards. 3, 2, 1. Or if I say 4, 5, 7, you say 7, 5, 4. You just flip it around. What do they call that with a word when you flip a word around? Something. I don't know. I wish one of you was an English professor who retired and is glad you did.
Palindrome.
A palindrome?
Yeah.
You have alliteration in your name and lots of books behind you. We found our English professor, everybody. Palindrome. That's great. So let's look at the extended slant. 4, 5, 7. Swap it. 7, 5, 4. 4, 5, 7. 7, 5, 4. Let's do an L. 3, 3, 5. 5, 3, 3. 3, 3, 5. 5, 3, 3. Yeah, you're going to have to work out the fingerings. I want you to live with that for a little bit. Let's talk about the Gary Gallier fingerings. So watch this. And I'm not sure, I should call him and make sure I'm not teaching this wrong. But if you're a thumb player and you're doing a 2, 2, 4, you can find a way to kind of take those same 3 fingers and reposition them to get the flipped version. But he does something like this, and I might have the fingerings wrong, but the concept is still the same. Check this out. For this flipping a 2, 2, 4, I'm going to take my middle finger, put it on the bass at 2. Ring finger, put it on the bass at 2. Sorry, middle at 2. So ring finger, bass, 2. Middle finger, bass, 2. Am I having a hard time? Middle finger, bass, 2. Ring finger, middle, 2. Pinky, melody, 2. Middle, ring, pinky holds down your 2, 2, 2. And then you determine whether it's a regular L shape, 2, 2, 4, or a flipped L shape, 4, 2, 2, by just moving the thumb back and forth. There's disadvantages to that. There's advantages to that. It's good to know about it. It works for the slant and extended slant also. And what works? Well, the idea is you're holding down a simple shape on the bass middle melody, 2-2-2, and then the thumb determines where this note goes, whether you got a regular shape or a flipped one. Let's look at 2-3-4, the slant. We're going to create a simple shape, hold down all three strings, and the thumb will determine if it's regular or flipped. So for a slant like 2-3-4, you're going to hold down a 2-3-2. Middle, index, ring, 2-3-2. Middle, index, ring, 2-3-2. And then the thumb will determine whether it's a regular slant, 2-3-4, or 4-3-2. And if my dulcimer was angled a little more, these would be way more comfortable. I'll tell you why you want to flip things in a minute. This is exactly how the extended slant works. We're on a 2-3-4. That's a slant. Let's make it an extended slant, 2-3-5. You can put that 5 on the bass or the melody, but you're still holding down the 2-3-2 with those other fingers. Now, we can cover that later, but I got to keep moving, and you can come back and watch that later. Why flip chords? I'm going to say this as simply as I can. When you use the regular L slant and extended slant that we started with last week, where's your highest number when you're using those shapes? Which string has the highest number? The melody string. So which string has the lowest number? The bass. Sometimes the bass and middle have the lowest number. This is what I'm going to call regular shapes, where the highest number's on your melody string. When you flip them, the opposite is true. The highest number will be on the bass. So that's one way you can identify flipped and regular shapes. Why? What happens though when you flip it? Well, check this out. If you play a shape flipped, so I'm starting with the new one, not the 2-3-4, but the 4-3-2. When you start with a flipped slant, if you were to look at these notes on a piano, you would see that they are all very close together on the piano. You would have an A followed by a D followed by an F sharp, and they're so close that you can easily use one hand to play them on the piano. They're close to each other. When you flip it to the regular shapes that we started with, you take what is on the piano very close, you take the lowest thing and move it further away. You take the highest thing and move it further away. Everything is very open and spread out. Regular shapes where the melody string is the highest number, if you look at those exact notes on a piano, everything's spread out. Flipped shapes, same chord, but you flipped it. Look at that on a piano, everything's very close together. So some people call these close voicings and open voicings. Close, that's all your flipped ones. It has a tighter sound to it. This consolidated, punchy sound. When you flip it so that it's like a regular shape, like what we started with last week, these are very open voicings. They have an open, spread out sound. So when I'm doing backup, I will do chunks of close voicings, chunks of open voicings. Or another way to say that is chunks of all flipped shapes. That's all flipped, all close voicing. Or I can do the same exact shapes in the same place, but just unflip them, if you want to think of it like that. And I think of it that way. The regular shapes have a big sound. The flipped ones have a punchy, focused sound. And if I'm going to back up somebody 5 times through a tune on stage, one time I'll use more open voicings. Next time through the tune, more closed voicings. Oddly enough, mandolins very often, not always, but they tend to use very open voicings that would match dulcimer beginner chords. Guitars, not always, but they tend to use a lot of close voicings. That would be the flip dulcimer shapes. You can almost emulate a mandolin or a guitar just by flipping these shapes. Boy, that's not fun. Now, how can you make this fun? Because you might be thinking, Steve's not fun. This is not fun. I'm bringing you wine and bread and meat and some of you tofu. Very good tofu, by the way. I wouldn't give you cheap tofu. And then I'm asking you, would you please feel this, smell it, look it up online, try cooking it different ways. Learn about wine, learn about, the breads, smell them, taste them, experiment. If you're not doing that stuff in your kitchen, this subject matter is exhausting. And you will either blame me or you, and it's neither one of our faults. That's not true. It's hard stuff, But if you're using it, who's using it the most? Somebody who's got a gig this weekend, backing up a singer. Someone who's playing with a dulcimer club where you're bored with Ball Them Cabbage. So after you play the melody the first time through, you start practicing what we're doing in this class for backup. You have to find an application. And often that happens in community, but not always. I want to talk about zones. We're going to start off next week with it, but watch this. And remember, I'll be here for questions as long as you like, and then I will help Kara Lee if she's able. So, homework, y'all. We're so often in the key of D major. And the three chords I want you to focus on for your homework are D, G, and A. They are all major chords. And what I'd really like you to memorize through a variety of methods, memorize, internalize, obsess over if you can. Forget about the flip shapes for just a second. I want you to be able to do D with L, slant, and extended. And if you look on your handouts, it's the first three shapes on the handouts when you see a D major chord. For G major, you're going to start with the extended slant, and you'll see that on the handouts. Extended, L, slant. Same shapes, same order, you're just starting on the extended. And then for A, I want you to do extended slant, L, slant. So if you look at your handouts, it's the first three of each chord, the first three shapes of each chord. D, whether you use thumb or not. G, whether you use thumb or not. A, whether you use thumb or not. And I'd like you to be able to go left and right. That's too fast for most of you, but I'm just trying to move because I know we're at the end here. Something like that. When you get bored with that, finger picking will make it more fun. Play it expressively. If you could really give someone a hug that you miss, how would you hug them? Play your music that way. Then flip everything. Flip everything. And you might have to prioritize some of this stuff. Here's the flipped. All those shapes. When you're in med school, I hear that you spend your undergraduate years learning a lot of vocabulary. Someone told me that 25 years ago. I don't know how true that is today. But that's got to be tedious. What would make a future doctor go through that tediousness. There's a reward, hopefully. you know, this is a short season of your life. You can talk about this like your undergraduate years. I did it. I didn't like it, but I got through it. Whatever. Find a way for you to like this. Play it musically. Put emotions into it. Do not play exercises in a boring way. If you must pretend they're awesome, do it. It's a short season of your life. I want you to start to build tactile memory of these chords, visual memory, audible memory. I want you to get acquainted with these so that one of them looms on the horizon. You can see it before it ever gets near you. So, review the video, make little 2 and 3 word phrases to just and write down the time on the video. At least review the video once, I think's good. I enjoy so many benefits from this, you won't believe it. Knowing these shapes everywhere. So some of you need to hang up right now. Some of you can hang on. I'm going to say this next part in 1 minute. This is the preview for next week. Watch this. What D, G, and A shapes are right here where my hand is so that I don't have to move anywhere else? There's a D, 3 shapes right there for D, G, and A right here. I can move over here. There's 3 D, G, and A shapes here. I can move my hand up here. There's 3 D, G, and A shapes here. Zone 1, and these are very loosely named. Zone 2, Zone 3, and there's another way to do this, but I'm keeping it simple. I can keep going. I'm playing D, G, and A no matter where my hand is, and that will make your backup and your chord melody playing very interesting. Tell your spouse to watch that show you don't like. For me, it's that. What's that Victorian author? It's all the girls who are falling in love with these rich young boys. I forget what it's called. You know what it is. I would tell Heather, you watch that all you want tonight. And I would pick this dulcimer up, set it down over and over through the course of 3 hours. Makes us a better couple. She loves subtitles, so that works out. Thank you very much. This is the end, but I'm going to stick around for dulcimer questions. Thank you very much. All right, who has some questions? Janet Oliver. She might be waving. If you're waving, just hang up. People who have iPads always look like they're waving when they go to hang up. Anyone else? Someone have a question? You probably feel browbeat. Cindy, are you waving? Okay, hello.
No, I have a question. You talked about you could use the bar chord for any chord, and I'm still confused about the 1.5 and the 1 and the 6.
What note is on the bass string for a 1.5? Look at that sheet if you have it.
F.
That's right. So if you put a 1.5 on the bass and build your bar chord there, it will handle many different types of F chords. Not all of them, but most of what you need.
But also at 2, you have F sharp.
Right.
And that will handle all of them too. So could you choose either one? If you're
This is what you might be thinking. An F and an F sharp are 2 different things.
Okay.
I think sometimes people think of the sharp as like, well, it's an F with a little pizzazz. No. An F sharp is a different thing than an F. Right. That's a good question.
Different note. Okay.
So somebody will lean over to you and say, play an F sharp 7, and you play an F, and they go, no, an F sharp. Oh, okay, let me, So you just have a little more versatility by having that.
Thank you.
What else you got out here? You can ask me crazy questions. Susan, go ahead.
So it looks like if we don't have a 1.5, we can never play an F. Because you've only got F sharps.
There are solutions. First of all, let me tell you, if you asked me to play with you at Halsey, not that you live in England, not that it's like around dinner time now, but let's say you wanted me to play on stage with you and you told me I was going to need to use F notes and F chords sometimes. What would I do? I've got some options. One thing I could do is say, well, what key are you in? And then you'd say, oh, I'm in the key of C. Okay, well, I'll just tune my regular dulcimer down to C, G, C.
Right.
So what looks like a G chord on that dulcimer is really an F because I've tuned everything down 2 half steps. That's one option. Another option I have is, depending on what you want me to do, I could change my tuning on the regular dulcimer. I could go to D, G, D. If you go to D, G, D, you can get a nice F major chord, and you can play in different sections in the key of C major. So D, G, D tuning, that would work, and I could even capo at 3 to make that easier. D, G, D, capo 3. Another option is I'm in D, A, D. I'm not going to change the tuning. I don't have the extra fret. If I just need to play a chord every once in a while, a C chord, I'm sorry, an F chord, I could play a 6, 7, 6. When I'm by myself, it's not impressive. In context, it's better. Let's see. Here's a C, here's a G, here's that weird F. Back to C. When I put it in the context, it's better. If you and I are playing together and you have the Fs, it's even better. But a 6, 7, 6 in the DAD tuning, there's no F. It's just C, A, C. So you have the thirds, no, you have the fifths and then 1/3. There might be other strange things I do, but a lot of it depends on, do you want me to play melody? Does that melody use the F a lot, or can I kind of fudge my way around it? Can I play, sometimes when somebody wants me to play an F, I can play an A minor, and it actually, depending on the song, it can actually work. So there's a lot of what I would think of. But my first thing would be, why don't I just tune down to CGC? But let's say you were in the key of G major and you needed an F. That poses a different problem. So, but just write me and ask me and I'll tell you. That's one way to do it. Do you have another question about that?
No.
I think you should start with, you could tune CGC, especially if you're going to the key of C major. If you just need the chord and you don't need to do much with it, stay in DAD, use a 6, 7, 6 to get you through. All right, what's another question or thought out there? All right. I'm going to stop the recording and help Kara Lee. So, and you guys are welcome to hang out for that, but especially if you have that same problem. But thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. You'll get a review video soon. And I just want to stop.
Thank you.
Thank you.